Hello, my name is Dr. Luke Bell. I'm lecturer in molecular horticulture at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom. This is a screencast of material originally made available for the module Principles of Horticulture and Crop Production from the years 2020 to 2025. Please note that some of the details may now be outdated.
So after this screencast, you will be able to explain the key characteristics of juvenile plant growth, give an example of how a plant may change its growth habit as it matures, describe two ways in which crops have evolved physical defences against pests, and describe two ways in which crops have evolved chemical defences against pests. So the juvenile phase of plant growth is the period immediately after germination, and most crops are capable of rapid vegetative growth during this stage. So this is predominantly the development of shoots and leaves, and the type of growth is sort of characterized by non-reproductive growth, i.e. the tissues which are being developed and are growing are non-flowering and non-reproductive, so vegetative. The growth habit of crops can vary markedly. As you'll appreciate, there's a huge diversity of different horticultural crops, and there's variation in determining when a plant is mature and when a plant is an adult plant. So there should be a distinction made between the harvestable stage of a crop and the adult stage of a crop, because the two are not necessarily always the same thing. Some develop to be short and have kind of bushy characteristics in the juvenile stage of growth, and some change growth habit when approaching maturity and adulthood, for example by growing taller. And so just to use this as an example, so in case you don't know, this is what a cabbage plant looks like, and it's kind of characterized by this short, squat and stocky growth very close to the ground. The leaves kind of radiate out from the central stem, but the plant doesn't really grow very tall. It's probably only about a foot or so off the ground, and the harvestable part of the plant is the cabbage head in the middle of this rosette of leaves. So this is considered the most appropriate point for harvesting the cabbage plant, but it isn't the adult stage, or what would be considered the adult form of the plant. So in this kind of categorization, the plant would still be classed as a juvenile vegetative plant. So this image here, apologies, the quality of the image isn't great, but hopefully you can see that this is a completely different shape of plant. So this is what an adult cabbage plant might look like. So you can see it's grown tall. The rosette of leaves is still remaining there surrounding the lower half of the plant, but you can see that the growth is now developed much towards being elongated rather than squat towards the ground, and that's to develop the floral tissues which you can see at the top of the plant there. We'll go into more detail on this in the next screencast. So juvenile plants are quite vulnerable to pest and disease infestations. This is because of their small size, but also because the tissues that are developing are typically quite soft and succulent and are an easy target for insect pests like aphids, but also bird pests and mammal pests, so things like rabbits and also pigeons. A few different horticultural crops have evolved ways of dissuading herbivory and attacks by pests. So these, just to give a few examples, the tomato plant, for example, has evolved hairs which grow out of the stems. These are also called trichomes. And so these are kind of a prickly surface which interfere with insects trying to get to the sap within within the stems of the plants, but also they provide a rough, unpleasant surface for animals and birds to tackle when they're trying to eat the plants. So another example is the development of thorns on some woody species, so particularly fruit trees. And this is a lemon tree. So you can see these have evolved these quite severe and sharp-looking spines and thorns on the stems. And this again is to stop herbivores from attacking and eating the fruits. Crops have also developed a huge range of different chemical compounds within their leaves and within their tissues for combating both pests and disease. So just to give again a couple of examples of this, so members of the mustard family of plants have evolved compounds called glucosinolates, and so these are broken down when tissues are attacked, and they release volatile compounds called isothiocyanates, and these can be quite pungent smelling and tasting and quite hot and peppery. So they provide a kind of agitation for any animal which is attempting to eat the tissue. So in the picture here, this is an example of radishes. So if you've ever eaten a radish, you'll know that they can be quite hot and peppery, and that's these compounds which are causing that sensation in our mouths. But these compounds can also be quite toxic to certain insects, and in high concentrations can be fatal. They also thought to protect against some kinds of fungal infections as well. Another example of a chemical defense found in a horticultural crop. So this is potato leaves. And you may know that raw potatoes are quite poisonous, and that's because they contain compounds called glycoalkaloids. These are broken down when potatoes are cooked, but the compounds are actually present throughout the entirety of the plant, and they can be extremely toxic to mammals if ingested, and that includes humans, and there have been notable cases throughout history where people have died of solanine poisoning. So solanine is a glycoalkaloid which is highly toxic and essentially poisons the liver. So these are very unpleasant compounds, but they exist within our horticultural crops, and we've developed methods such as cooking to remove them from our diets essentially. So in summary, the juvenile plant growth stage is characterized by vegetative growth, i.e. non-reproductive growth, the growth of leaf tissues and stems. Growth habit of crops can change as the plant grows and matures. Plants and crops have evolved different physical defenses against pests and disease, such as thorns and hairs, also known as trichomes. And plants have evolved chemical defenses to dissuade pests and prevent disease.